What's going on, YouTube, and welcome to Goal Line Hockey. It's Kevin Forte, and today we are taking a look at the Western Conference Finals, baby. Here we are. We're down to the Final Four, and in the Western Conference, we've got the Vegas Golden Knights against the Dallas Stars. It's going to be a really good matchup, a matchup we've never seen before in the NHL between the Golden Knights and the Dallas Stars. Two really good roads to the tail here for both of these teams. Who will come up victorious in the Western Conference to head to the Stanley Cup Final? We're going to discuss that today. So for the Vegas Golden Knights, a pretty good journey. They've had to go through a couple of pretty good teams along the way, but here they are. The Vegas Golden Knights are coming into this series, winning both their series so far, obviously, and this is now their ninth playoff series. They are coming into this with their ninth playoff series victory since they came into the NHL in 2018. This is also their fourth time going to the Western Conference Final in their 6 seasons in the National Hockey League. So, listen, everybody gets annoyed, they haven't gone through the pain and suffering and this and that. Listen, guys, this is good for the game. Teams like Vegas and Seattle doing well is good for the game because, here's why, you're going to see the next teams that come into the NHL at some point, whether it's Sacramento or Salt Lake City or Houston or pick your city. Whatever cities come in, that's going to drive up the amount of money and the amount of cost to bring those teams in. It's also going to raise the salaries. So we're going to see player salaries go up, right? And things like that. So there's a lot of good to be had from teams like the newbies, like Vegas and Seattle doing well. And that is the story here for Vegas as a really, really good season. 51 wins, 111 points. First in the Pacific Division. You know, they really did what they needed to do during the regular season and in the playoffs as well. You know, looking in the playoffs, they played the Winnipeg Jets, won that series in 5 games despite dropping game 1. They banged out the next 4, and they really did well for a stretch. Between the Winnipeg series and the Vegas and the Oilers series, they found a way to win those early games by kind of just grinding it out. And there were a couple games, like in Game 1 against Winnipeg, a little bit of doubt. Game 2 against Edmonton, there was definitely a sense of doubt after losing 5-1. There was a little concern there. You know, this was kind of a back-and-forth seesaw series, but the Golden Knights veterans and their leadership found a way to get through that. And they were able to win this series in 6 games, which is not easy to do. They won an elimination game on the road in Edmonton. That's not easy to do. But the Golden Knights found a way to prevail. Now you look at this team here. You know, during the postseason, Jack Eichel, of all people, in his first playoff run in the NHL, has 14 points in 11 games. So Eichel's been playing really well. Same thing for the captain, Mark Stone. He's got 12 points throughout the postseason. Stevenson, Marchessault, Barbashev, Carlson, Smith, Pietrangelo. All those guys are scoring. And I just talked about the Oilers. You know, the reason that the Golden Knights were able to beat the Oilers was their scoring depth was extremely, extremely potent. They were able to get right, because we always talk about Stone and Eichel and Marchessault, but then you're seeing guys like Stevenson and Barbashev and those other guys I mentioned scoring and producing and getting points. That's allowed the Golden Knights, even when there's a night where you don't see a hat trick from Eichel or Stone, you're going to see that depth scoring from their secondary and third tier guys in the lineup. And that's really allowed the Golden Knights to find a lot of success in the playoffs. Now, also looking in between the pipes for this team, kind of an interesting story. Laurent Brossoit was their number 1 guy going into the playoffs. He got hurt during the Edmonton series, so they've been going with Adin Hill, but his numbers have been good. He's got 3 wins in his 5 starts with the Vegas Golden Knights. He's got a .934 save percentage and a 2.19 goals against average. He's a big boy, and with the way that the Golden Knights defense is structured, it really allows him to do what he needs to do, and I think it's going to make for a pretty interesting matchup between the Dallas Stars offense and the Vegas Golden Knights defense. We'll get to that later on. Meanwhile, for the Dallas Stars, their trip to the Cup has been a little bit different, but kind of similar. The Dallas Stars were one of their top teams in the Central Division. They were only behind the Colorado Avalanche, but they had 47 wins, 108 points. They had a really good season as well. And you look at their cup trip, They played the Minnesota Wild in the first round. They won that series in 6 games in pretty convincing fashion. And they beat the Seattle Kraken in 7 games. So they have played a lot of playoff hockey so far throughout this postseason. So we'll see if maybe that comes back to bite them. But I guess that's similar to the Oilers situation too, right? They've each played 13 games. So I look at what we've seen from Dallas. The big storyline I've seen from Dallas is 2 specific things. Well, really 3, I guess you could say. So 2 individual players and just the overall way the Dallas Stars play. So the 2 players in particular for Dallas are Jake Ottinger and Miro Heiskanen. Miro Heiskanen, if the Dallas Stars do end up going to the Cup final and maybe even winning a Cup, that's a guy I would be looking at for Conn Smythe. He has been that good for Dallas, and maybe it's underrated. I think people are starting to get on the Miro Heiskanen hype train, but deservedly so. He's been so good for them this year, and he's the type of guy that you need on your blue line if you want to win a Stanley Cup. We talk about those really good teams like John Carlson with the Capitals, with St. Louis. Alex Pietrangelo, fittingly, was there. And now a team like Dallas with Miro Heiskanen, you need that puck-moving defenseman that can also shut things down as well. That's the type of new dynamic defenseman, right? Victor Hedman with the Tampa Bay Lightning, another really good example. So you need that one shutdown guy. And they've also got some really good complements behind him, and that's allowed the Dallas Stars to kind of do what they need to do on the blue line. So Miro Heiskanen, definitely one to watch. Another one to watch for the Conn Smythe, if it gets to that point for Dallas, it's definitely Jake Ottinger. This team does so well when Jake Ottinger plays well, but there has been a couple, he has looked mortal throughout the postseason. Maybe not so much in the first round, but the second round he had 3 stinker games. A 5-4 loss in overtime in game number 1. In game 3, they lost 7-2 and 6-3 to the Seattle Kraken. So they've had a couple of tough games. So Jake Ottinger is the type of goalie that when in a situation where he's lost a game, he always bounces back. He's 5-0 in the playoffs this year, coming after a loss. In that next start, he is 5-0. So he's undefeated, and his numbers are really good. So that's definitely something to watch for in this Golden Knights series. And the third thing is, the theme of the Dallas Stars playoffs is, you look at the last 2 series in particular. This is a team that has found themselves in trouble through the first 3 games, being down 2-1 in both of the series. But they somehow find their way back up. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing with the Dallas Stars is they kind of struggle to get things going early in the series. And once they hit the ground running, it's all over. The Dallas Stars at the end of this series have played really, really well. They won their last 3 games of the series against Minnesota, and they won 3 of their final 4 games against Seattle. And that's kind of what you're looking for, is the ability to play well when it matters most, especially in a series like the last 2 they've played in. Against teams that, like Seattle, they could have easily gotten to the next round. And Dallas really gave them a fight. Now, a lot of people gave me so much heat about the Seattle Kraken Dallas Stars forward depth, and we're going to talk about that in a second because I want to compare both of these teams' offense, defense, and goaltending because it is extraordinarily close, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So for me to even decide this was very, very difficult. But looking at the rosters and what I've seen so far from each of them in the playoffs, I put them head to head. So for offense, I gave this one to the Golden Knights. And the reason I say that is I think Vegas's top players are better than Dallas's top players. Meaning, I have more faith in scoring the big goal. It's more likely going to see it from a guy like Mark Stone or Jack Eichel or Chandler Stevenson or Jordan March or so. I have more confidence in those guys scoring that big clutch goal than I do in Jamie Benn or Tyler Seguin or one of those guys. Because we have seen some emergence now of Rupe Hintz scoring in Game 7 of the last series. We know Joe Pavelski, what he's capable of. He picked up 8 goals in that 7-game series against the Seattle Kraken. So he's been scoring since he came back from injury. So there's a team that has some guys that can score. And the depth is pretty good on both sides as well. So, you're also seeing production from guys like Mikey Amadio in Vegas. You're seeing some depth scoring from guys in Dallas, some of the younger guys. like Wyatt Johnston scoring the game-winning goal of their last series. So you're seeing depth scoring on both sides. So I have a lot of confidence in that, but I'm going with Vegas because, like I said, when the big moments come out, when your stars need to shine, I have more faith in the Vegas Golden Knights top guns getting it done. With that said, defense, another really close race, even more difficult, but I'm going to go with the Dallas Stars here because I think their system allows them to kind of get that edge. Just barely, but they have the edge. We've seen, Vegas get exposed with their defense, right? They've had a couple games, especially in the last series, where they gave up a lot of goals. But their defense is very systematically sound. You don't get to the Final Four without having a very nice defense. But I think that Dallas, in terms of Miro Heiskanen, Ryan Suter, overall, even Yanni Hakanpää, who I think is very underrated. I loved him in Anaheim. Really good defenseman. Those are the type of guys that are really a pain in the neck to play against. I think that's an edge for the Dallas Stars. So I'm going to go with the Dallas Stars defense, but again, definitely giving credit to the Golden Knights blue line because I think they are very, very close. Goaltending, this one is pretty much the easiest one out of the three categories. I think there's going to be the least debate here, and that is Jake Ottinger being the better goalie, so the Dallas Stars goaltending. And of course, kind of easier, you just look at their numbers. Adin Hill's only played 4 or 5 games throughout the entirety of the playoffs. Jake Ottinger has been the number one guy for Dallas. That is their guy, and he is the guy they're going to be running with pretty much the entirety of the way. I think there's a little bit of a shorter leash for Adin Hill for the Vegas Golden Knights. He ended the series really well against Edmonton, so maybe he's the hot goaltender right now and is able to outduel Jake Ottinger, but that's going to be very, very difficult. And I think it's not impossible for the Golden Knights, but it is going to be very difficult. If Jake Ottinger is playing well, I think he can outduel any goaltender in the entire National Hockey League. And we talk about him maybe being the next Carey Price, and makes it even more difficult. Now, the good news here for both of these teams, I think this is going to be a fairly low-scoring series. So I think for the fans out there, you're not going to have to see too much of the other team scoring. I think it's one of those series that the Dallas Stars have shown weakness, right? They gave up 6 goals, 7 goals in one game. They have given up a lot of goals, and we haven't even seen a shutout from Ottinger since Game 5 of their last series against Minnesota. So he came pretty close in Game 7, but he came up just short. We need to see more performances like that from Jake Ottinger. If the Dallas Stars are to win this series, he needs to give up 1, maybe 2 goals in a game, because I think Dallas has the offense, but this is going to be a difficult test for them. It's a little different than Seattle. There's a little bit more system, like a very good system from Bruce Cassidy on the blue line, and I just wonder how Dallas is going to be able to attack that. Like I said, the longer this series goes, I think it will be in favor of the Dallas Stars. And that's just kind of history repeating itself at this point. Vegas has had a very good playoff run. I want them, bias, I think I want them to go to the Stanley Cup final. And I think they will go to the Stanley Cup final. I have the Vegas Golden Knights winning this series in 6 games. I think if this goes to 7, I think it's going to be Dallas. I think Dallas has the team to beat them in 7 games. But I think that Vegas, the fact that what they did against the Oilers, if they're able to shut down Edmonton's top guys and they're able to score the way they have, I think they will be okay. I think Dallas is a very good team. They're a tough out. And like I said, I'd love to say Vegas wins this in 5. I just don't think that's feasible. I think Ottinger can at least steal you 1 game, maybe even 2. And if some of these games go to overtime, a bounce here or a bounce there, I have to have it going to 6. I think Vegas is just the team to beat right now. I like what Dallas has done this year. They've got some talent, but I think they're running into a really good team right now in Vegas that everybody is firing on all cylinders. They're getting really good goaltending from Adin Hill. As long as that keeps up, it's going to be really difficult for the Dallas Stars to overcome. Like I said, I have Vegas winning this series in 6 games. So guys, let me know what you think down below. What do you think of the Dallas Stars versus the Vegas Golden Knights Western Conference final? Leave your predictions down below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Who are going to be the MVPs of the series? For me, I think it is going to be Jack Eichel, kind of continuing his march through the Stanley Cup playoffs. He's a guy to watch for potentially winning the Conn Smythe for Vegas. So I'm going to go with the Vegas Golden Knights in 6, and your MVP of the series being Jack Eichel. Guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.